claims isn't what it used to be. You used to just, present your claim package with some photos and an estimate and a brief narrative, and the insurance company would come back. You meet the adjuster out for an inspection. They come back with their undisputed payment. You dispute it, you negotiate it, you settle it, and you move on to the next one, where now it's just like they're just saying no, left and right. And, if you do not have the proper evidence and narrative and factual-based evidence in place to present with your claim, you're gonna have a hard time settling that sucker.
From humble beginnings, Insurance Claim HQ has grown to one of the largest property casualty firms in the country. We didn't do it alone, and you shouldn't either. Every week, we're talking to claims professionals and top experts from all over, all to help you grow your business and make you stronger. Let's level up together. I'm Galen Hair. Welcome to the Level Up Claims Podcast. Running a public adjusting firm is hard enough in one state, let alone across multiple. From disorganized processes and inconsistent team performance to the overwhelming maze of multi-state compliance, the operational headaches can really pile up fast. So today, we're joined by someone who's been there and solved that. Vince Perri is the founder and CEO of Elite Resolutions, a multi-state public adjusting firm known for its systems-driven approach to scaling. Now, in this episode, I was supposed to talk to Vince about all those things, such as how he built efficiency into the DNA of his firm, how he streamlined operations, how he manages remote teams using tech to stay ahead. And honestly, it would have been a great episode. But when you've got a legend in the room, you ask him the questions you really want to know. So join us today as I talk to Vince about efficiencies, identifying inefficiencies, SOPs, picking the right people, and what he thinks the future of the industry will be. Vince, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Galen. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, pumped, man. I mean, you've been doing so much for the industry. What I don't think we've really covered, though, is how did you get to where you are today? What was, lots of people like to talk about how they got into insurance, but more importantly, all the educational stuff you do, all that stuff. When was it that you decided you didn't just want to be an adjuster?
Well, I got into the education not because I wanted to get into the education. It's all about building your personal brand, right? It's all about making sure that you're posting on social media and that your face is out there. So after I read the book Crushing It by Gary Vee 6 years ago or so, and he's talking about giving it away, giving it away, giving it away, that's when I decided to start the YouTube channel. And I started posting a lot of content on Facebook and Instagram. And initially I was posting it for the consumer, for the homeowner. But because I felt at the time, which I don't know if it was the best decision, I just didn't think that homeowners would be interested, because I always said that people aren't really interested about claims until they actually have one. I decided to just change gears and really start talking to the public adjuster, because initially I was talking to the homeowner and I felt like it was falling flat. So I started talking to the public adjuster because I felt that they would be more inclined to really absorb the information and take it with them. And also, at the time, I had been a public adjuster already for 10 or 11 years. So I did feel like I was kind of an expert status in regards to just the amount of experience that I had. So I just started talking to public adjusters, and every week I had a show. I still have the show every Wednesday, and it was just a new topic about claims. And it really just turned into something which eventually turned into its own business, turned into its own products of books and courses, turned into its own mastermind, and it just turned into that.
The best accident ever, huh?
Yeah.
Our experience, it's interesting you bring that up, because our experience has been very similar on educational content. We do it. We're glad we do it. I do think it helps consumers when they're looking for it, but there's not enough consumers out there on a day-to-day basis that are just fundamentally interested in insurance claims that you get a viewership or a following necessarily,
Right. Yeah. And that's the reason why I went after the public adjuster, because I was like, I felt like it was just going to fall flat. But I do think that it's out. I do think that there's a market out there for it, because I think a lot of people have had claims, are concerned about having a claim, or are in the middle of a claim. So I do think it's still there.
Oh yeah, we definitely get it. We'll get a sign up, someone will call and say, oh, I saw Galen's video on fire damage and blah, blah, blah. But, and they're and it was exactly what I'm going through. But but it's such an isolated incident. It's like that one video might perpetuate on the internet for 2.5 years before one person sees it and is like, this is exactly what I needed for this exact time in my life. But no one has ever reached out and been like, I've just been following you for like a year because I'm so interested in insurance. It is what it is. It's just, I think, I guess my point is the pivot is right. And I think that's so important in any industry, any business, when you're owning any business. Like, you can get a plan. Like Gary Vee is very consumer reach out based. Like, he puts out content for the consumers, but you took that and kind of flipped that on its head and said, okay, the real play here is to go to the potential referral sources and give them a bunch of information because they actually care enough to follow what I'm doing.
Yeah, and then eventually my purpose also just became where people started messaging me and telling me that they were getting no training and that it was because of my YouTube channel that was the training that they were getting. And eventually it became purpose driven because, the first company that I worked for, they literally just threw me out there with the wolves. They're just like, go ahead and sell. Is really just wanted me to sign claims. I didn't know anything about, I had worked for State Farm for a year, but I really didn't know much about, just the nuts and bolts of the insurance claims process, but I could sell and I could hustle. So I went out there and I signed a bunch of claims and I did what I could, but I was just thrown out into the wolves. I didn't know what I was doing. And the worst part was like, I would call the owner and he would never answer. For me to get an appointment with him, it was only like at 8:30 a.m. on a Tuesday or whatever. And then the second company I worked for, not only did I double the amount of commission I was getting, but like our number one rule was always just answer your phone. That was always the rule. And every time I called to ask him a question, he would answer. Anytime I asked him to go to an inspection with me to take a look at this loss, to get another pair of eyes on it, he would go and he would meet me. So it became purpose driven because I wanted to be that guy for everyone else who didn't have that, because everyone else was experiencing what I experienced in the first firm that I worked for, which was just no guidance, no training, no education whatsoever. And that was like the guy that I wanted to be. I wanted to be my mentor and I wanted to be the mentor for everyone else.
It's great. It's like that all over the industry. And even at law firms, like there's law firms that you just like, you take your job, you get a desk and things just start coming your way and you're expected to figure out what to do. And, same thing. Then you get the sense like some owners feel really inconvenienced by answering questions for their employees. And I get it, whatever. Like you've worked for a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades to build up a business and have enough money to go to Vegas or go wherever. So you don't want your employees bothering you, but then like hire someone else to train them. Right.
Right.
It's wild, but I think that pivot is so important. So like, let's talk about that. You give so much advice and you're so great about it, but in the adjusting world, like what are some, like now that you have really built a fine business, you're seen as a top educator in the industry, you get to see all these other operations. What would you say are like a couple of the major inefficiencies you see at adjusting firms?
A couple of the major inefficiencies that I see, I think are just more related to the industry as a whole, Galen. You see where it's at right now, where it's become very, very difficult to just settle claims ultimately, and I think that's where the issue lies, where to keep your public adjusters engaged, to keep them actually bringing in work and settling claims and closing claims, I do think that the education piece now and the training within each firm is probably the most important now than it's ever been in the past, because settling claims isn't what it used to be. You used to just, present your claim package with some photos and an estimate and a brief narrative, and the insurance company would come back. You'd meet the adjuster out for an inspection. They'd come back with their undisputed payment. You'd dispute it. You'd negotiate it. You settle it, and you move on to the next one, where now it's just like they're just saying no left and right. And, if you do not have the proper evidence and narrative and factual-based evidence in place to present with your claim, you're going to have a hard time settling that sucker. So, if you're talking about did I answer your question, or are you talking about more on the business side of it?
No, you did. There's no right or wrong answer, right? I'm just curious what you're seeing, and that makes sense. Like, I think those are some built-in inefficiencies. What are some things like, and just some other high points, and then we'll use those as like springboards for our discussion, like some other high points when you go to, whether it's a contractor or whether it's a public adjusting firm, you talk to them, like so training is a big one. What are the other key pressure points where they just like, there's just adjustments they need to make, and if they did, their business would start humming?
Sales, I mean, I think is always a big one. How are you getting your leads? How are you getting your claims? Where are you finding them? It's very difficult in our industry because if it's okay if I could curse, we call it the shit hits the fan industry.
Yep.
So people are only going to reach out to you when the shit hits the fan. So you know about this. If you don't have the proper ads out there, if you're not targeting correctly, if you're not gaining enough leads so that you could feed your team, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to ultimately scale your business. And I think that's a part where a lot of the inefficiencies are coming. In regards to the contractors, I would say on their end, where we find it very difficult to work with the contractors, unfortunately, is just in the actual documentation that we get back from a contractor. It's a very, very common issue for public adjusters who've sort of partnered up with contractors in a way where, hey, you guys, find the claim, you refer me the claim, and I take a look at the report to see if it's a valid claim, so on and so forth. A lot of times I tell public adjusters, you need to go out there and you need to actually train the contractors. If you're going to rely on them for their documentation and for their report and so on and so forth, you better go out there and you better train them, because the way a public adjuster looks at it and the way a contractor looks at it, it's almost like two completely different set of eyes, where we don't have enough to actually prove the claim, and then they get mad at us because we're not settling the claim for them. So I think your inspection process is very, very important, whether you're a public adjuster or a contractor, to make sure that you are gathering all of the evidence that you need. So having a checklist, having a process behind it on exactly what you look for. I tell all my guys, make sure that you have a checklist for freaking everything, for your administrative and for your inspections. Make sure that whoever's going out to do whatever it is, that they're doing it exactly how you want them to do it, so that you could avoid mistakes in the future. So systems and processes is something else.
Yeah, and it's like the right SOPs, the right checklists, right? Like none of this stuff is rocket science, Like every once in a while I'll meet with a public adjuster that's like, look, I'm going to show you this thing, but it's my secret sauce, so you can't tell anyone. I'm like, that's fine, whatever. And then I see it and I'm like, I've seen this like 7 other times this month, but that's fine. I won't tell anyone that is doing this exact same thing you're doing, that you're doing it. What it really comes down to, it's like, do you have those processes in place? And if you do have them, do you make sure all your people actually follow them? Or are they just like a document that sits on a server, or even worse, like the back of their pickup truck that they don't even look at,
making sure that you use the processes are so important. You could make systems and processes for days. You could put them into a folder and they just collect dust, basically virtual dust, and nobody ever actually sees them. So you have to follow up. I tell people, like we do in my team, it's every month we pretty much follow up, making sure that they're following everything. Every quarter we actually update all of our processes. So I have whoever's in control of it or takes ownership of that particular system or processes. Every quarter we go in at the very least to make sure that they're updated according to whatever new processes we've added or checklists or whatever it is that we've changed.
That's awesome. And so important, guys, if you're listening at home, like so many people want to just knock it out and then they never come back to it. But the problem is we use new software every day. We use all these different things, like things keep changing. And then some new employee comes in and they read this and like, what is this shit? Like none of this is even true. I was just trained to do one thing and now this book tells me to do another thing. And then what do? They throw away the SOP altogether because they think it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can't wait to start using it. I just received a spreadsheet that basically organizes all of your systems and processes, has drop downs to see who's in control of it and who's not in control of it, a link to the actual process. And it's just one spreadsheet. So now it's much easier, where once I finish building that, now I could just send that. And that spreadsheet has everything that they could just go right into, as opposed to going into a folder and into the subfolder and the subfolder and finding it here and finding it there. Another thing that we do to make things a little bit easier is every SOP and every checklist starts with, what is the word? It's like a parentheses. It's not we use a bracket or whatever, but it's a parentheses, SOP, parentheses, then the name of the process. It's parentheses, checklist, always in caps, parentheses, then the name of the process. So that on Google, it's just easier, where I could just type in checklist and the whole drop down of all of our checklists comes in and they could choose it that way. So that's been a little hack that's really helped in finding the actual process and checklist.
So few people think about naming conventions on documents, right?
For search features, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, we're pretty good about it as a law firm. I don't think we're that good on an admin front, like with our SOPs and stuff. But obviously, because we're dealing with client files all day, things are supposed to be named certain ways. That way, if we ever have to send a file to a client isn't just fidgeting through files wondering what they are. It should be pretty apparent from the name of the file exactly what it is, so they don't have to wonder. Plus that decreases our overhead time. Like if we have a former client, like a client that actually fires us and is leaving, the last thing we want to do is spend 3 hours going through their file with them explaining what every document is. We want it to be super clean and clear. And, you know, we also operate, like I call it the hit by a bus theory. Like I don't want any of my attorneys to get hit by a bus, but if they do, I want any other lawyer in the office to be able to step right in, be able to figure out immediately what was going on, know where everything is, not have to guess, and be able to hit the ground running.
I mean, that's the key, right? So one thing that I do a lot now of, besides public adjusting, is I'm actually helping business owners make their business transferable. So like actually helping business owners increase the valuation of their business. And if and when that business is ready to sell, you know, one of the things that a buyer is going to look at is the actual structural integrity of your business. And what that is these systems, the processes, and how everything is sort of run. And it has to be transferable, just like you said, where if an employee or if somebody new wants to come into the company or if somebody wants to buy your business, I should be able to take it. I call it the playbook, or you could call it the operations manual, give it to somebody who knows nothing about your business and they'll be able to look at it and start running the business the way that they want to run it. Very, very important that your structural capital or your SOPs are transferable to somebody who knows nothing about your business.
I could not agree more. Let's talk
easier
about
said than done, right?
Yeah, way easier said than done, but sounds right. Yeah. But you know, that's the thing is if you can't get it done, there's people you can bring in. You can bring in someone like you know, you can bring in outside consultants. So many people just won't, you know, and if you won't, you have to figure out why you won't. All right, will you just not spend the money? Like, I get it if you truly don't have it. You still got to do it. Just don't spend the money, I guess. But if you won't do it because you're so unsure of your own process that you're not comfortable sitting down with a stranger and explaining it to them, you've got a bigger problem. You need to go back to square one, you know, because you need some consistency. And again, you can bring in people to help with that. You don't have to try to figure out what consistency looks like blind. I'm sure that's something you do too, is, well, why do you have 4 different people doing the same thing different ways? My
only regret in the first 12 years of running a business and being an entrepreneur is not hiring a business coach for 12 years. That's probably my only regret, is taking 12 years to actually hire a business coach, you know, and it takes some time to find the right one or consultant or whatever it is, because some might not be a good fit for you. But yeah, having some outside help and being able to having somebody, it's like, you know, it's like sports, right? It's like on a tennis court or in a boxing match, like the coach looking at it from the outside in has a much better perspective as opposed to the owner, who unfortunately is usually working so deep inside the business that they're not able to take a sort of 30,000 foot view to see exactly the issues, the holes, and what needs to be worked on and what needs to be fixed.
Yeah. And look, it's okay that it's hard to see that, right? Like, it's okay if you can't see the forest through the trees because you're so married to what's going on. Mm-hmm. I think that's normal. So let's talk about tech in that context. So there's so many tools these days that help out with so much. So what is like Vince Perri's like top tech stack right now?
I mean, it's AI, right? It's ChatGPT. I use it religiously. I could look at my ChatGPT now. I've got GPTs that I've created called Claim Companion, which basically literally I fed it so much information in regards to building codes and reading engineering estimates, and reading engineering reports and reading insurance company estimates and all kinds of stuff, where I could literally just take an engineering report, a denial letter, an estimate from the insurance company, and it will like read through that whole thing, find the holes, compare it to my estimate, and then also craft the email to respond to whatever it is that the insurance company is complaining about. I've also got, what's the other one I got? I've got an SOP Architect. That's one of my favorite ones that I'm using now. The SOP Architect is basically exactly how we create our SOPs. Like I have a way, we always start with the goal in mind, with the mission, with a couple other things I can't remember, with the link or whatever, and then all the steps that it takes, and then the checklist at the end. It's created the same way every time. So I could just feed it the information of what I wanted to do, or the transcript of a Loom video, put it in there, and it'll give me the SOP exactly the way I want it. So with the Claim Companion, the Value Clarity, the SOP Architect, and then also a leadership model builder. So like I usually do, whether it's per week or per month, I will have leadership training with my staff. And I'm just really just teaching them leadership principles on how to become better leaders, how to become better people, how to become better employees, how to become better just managers as well. And my leadership model is I've got a way that I do it. So whatever it is that I feel the team needs and is maybe lacking at the moment, I could feed it what I want to start to teach, and it will give me the whole layout of my entire teaching for that hour on making sure that they're being developed. So that's a good one too.
I love that. And that's so important. And, like, again, you don't have to recreate the wheel, right? Like you literally developed an AI model to help you put the trainings together. Whereas someone else is saying, I'm not going to do that training because I don't have 7 hours to put together a PowerPoint slide. Right. I don't have 7 hours to research and figure out what I want to say or do. I'm not suggesting everything is outsourced to AI or other people, but it's certainly there for you. And like, I don't know. I just feel like time is never the reason to say no to building your business or investing in your people, because there's always an answer to the time problem.
Not with AI, not with ChatGPT. I mean, you could do things so quickly now. But amongst other things that I'm using besides AI, I'm all in. We still use Company Cam for all of our photos and stuff. We do use Claim Wizard as our CRM to make sure that we have everything updated and we can see all of our client files. The customer portal is really, really nice in that as well. But basically, those are our three main tools that we use. WhatsApp to talk.
Gotta love WhatsApp. So all right, so let's kind of pivot then. So you've got using AI a ton, which by the way is just wild, guys. If you're still not using AI a lot, it will learn so much about you. And it also is kind of fun to open up your chats. And I'm sure, Vince, you like even unintentionally do this all the time. You go to open up a new chat and you see like the last 8 things you were working on, and you can kind of see what's important to your business and where you're headed. And it kind of keeps you focused. But I think let's talk about some future trends then in the time we have left. I feel like we're coming out of a time, COVID kind of shot everyone in the foot with all these in-person events. We had this huge proliferation. I think when you and I really met in like 2021, everyone was doing in-person events nonstop. We saw some big changes in the industry. We saw like Win the Storm change hands, kind of see a huge downturn. We saw a lot of the big conferences, I think, just had poor attendance. Last few months, we've seen some new smaller events, I think. Where do you think in-person events for the industry are headed?
I mean, I think they're back, right? I mean, there's a lot of good roofing conferences. I like how Win the Storm has really sort of, they changed hands, changed ownership, and they're doing really well. Roofing Insights as well, they changed ownership, and they're doing pretty well. I've heard really great things about your conference also. I put on a conference a couple of years ago that had a great turnout. I'm not sure if it's something that I want to do again. As you know, they're a lot of work and they cost a lot of money to do it. And people, if you're trying to make money on a conference, good luck. If you break even, that's about as good as you're going to get. But yeah, I mean, I think there's probably going to be a huge uptick in conferences. I think for a while, I thought there was a little bit too many. But I think if the main focus is still making sure that the attendees are getting the education that they need, especially in today's day and age or today's particular pain points that people are having, as long as they stay focused on the actual consumer that's coming in and they're not in it just for a profit, I think any conference is very good to go to, especially just with the networking that you can do and the people that you can meet and how to just help grow your business. I mean, conferences are key. I think they're very important. I love a good conference.
Yeah, I do. Look, it's the one opportunity I feel like I get to socialize with just like people in the industry without going, someone's in town. They're like, hey, let's grab dinner. I'm somewhere. I'll try to hit someone up. But I'm always working, and I don't get 2-3 days to just collaborate and talk. So I love them. I think, where I think it's headed, I'll be interested to see how Win the Storm does over the next few years. I hope they do well, obviously, because it would be great to see them make it through. But, I think this big traditional event model, I have this sneaking suspicion we're not going to see in a couple of years, personally. Like I'm talking with a huge exhibit hall, with all the pay-to-play speakers who are investing a ton of money to get on stage. Because the problem with that is you have to keep attendance up. The problem with that is most of these events are only profitable in a combination of sponsorship and attendance dollars.
Right.
So if you have to keep attendance up and you can't get them to buy the tickets, then you have to give away the attendee tickets. And at that point, people stop showing up because they're free tickets, and now your sponsors start to pull out. And I'm not going to name any names because there's no point in embarrassing those groups, but I saw that happen at a quote unquote big conference this year where they had terrible attendance. The exhibitors were all pissed And this happened at Win the Storm the year
Yeah,
before it changed hands,
I was at that Win the Storm. Everybody was pissed.
Oof, it was bad.
Yeah.
And what they had done to get more people, and I don't fault them for this, I think it was the only thing to do. What they'd done to get more people is they had just dumped as many tickets as they could for free. But then no one came because the tickets didn't mean anything. They weren't worth anything. If I buy a ticket for $400 and I get a plane ticket and a hotel, I'm coming unless there's something else that happens, right? If I buy a ticket for $1,000, you can be confident I'm showing up. I'm so cheap. If I buy it for $1,000, I'll be there even if I can't go. But if I'm given a ticket, I mean, I might not even buy a ticket, and maybe the night before the event, I'll decide if I'm going or not.
I love that. It's so true. When you spend money on something, it is what puts value on something. So everybody's always looking for a free ride or looking for a discount. But when you do that, people don't even know that subconsciously it just wipes out all the value and all of the importance of what it is that you're actually paying for. And if you don't spend money on it, you're right. That's so true. Because that's the same thing for our courses and the books and our mastermind. Like, there are people I'll pitch the mastermind to a public adjuster and they're just like, oh, that's too expensive. And I'm just like, come on, man. Like, if you don't spend that money on yourself and I give it to you for half price or for free, you're not going to attend. You're not going to come every week to our calls that we have. You're not going to do any of the things. And then you're going to come to me and say, oh, well, that wasn't worth it. It's like, yeah, because you didn't attend anything. Why didn't you attend anything? Because you didn't pay for it. People don't understand that you have to set a premium value on things to actually make it more important for the buyer. It's so weird how that works. I learned that just a few years ago. I got to be honest.
Oh, it's wild. So for the summit this year, we wanted to do it for free for a few reasons. I just am at this point in my career where I no longer want to interact with people I don't want to interact with. So I didn't want to host an event where anyone could buy a ticket and show up, and then I had to, have dinner with them and spend the whole day with them. I'm just like, my outlook on the world has changed, and I just want to be around people with similar values. I have no problem with different viewpoints, but want the same values. So we decided to do it for free. But what we did was ask for a deposit. Which we thought was super reasonable, and it was. And the people that came, they put down the deposit, and then they showed up, and we just refunded the deposit once they checked in. However, our website broke at some point. So about half, it wasn't a big deal, but about half of the people put deposits down. And about half of the people were able to just click submit without putting in the payment information for the deposit and book it anyway. Of the people that put deposits down, one did not show up, and it's because he was in the hospital, and you can be sure we refunded his deposit. Of the people that did not put deposits down, over half did not show up.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, isn't that wild? And the people that put deposits down, when they checked in, the person checking them in is like, oh, and I'll click refund on your deposit in just a second once we get started. And they're all like, oh, don't worry about it. We don't care.
Wow.
Because they'd invested money. Like we gave them the money back. They were happy to take it back, but they weren't even worried. They'd invested money. I mean, the deposit was probably less than their plane ticket and their hotel to get there anyway. They weren't worried about the money, but they were invested, so they showed up. And the people that just said, yeah, sure, I'll take a free ticket, they didn't show up.
So what do you think the future of conferences are?
Yeah, I think these big ones are going to be gone. I think they're going to be smaller ones. I think that, the way that you're going to have to make money on these events, if you want, is through one or two prime sponsorships and tickets. So I think we can expect to see ticket prices on some of these things start to go up. I think they'll try to set them up more like multiple day training sessions so they can charge, a couple of grand a ticket, because it's the only way to fund it. Because, these event venues are not getting cheaper. Well, the caterers are not getting cheaper.
I think the problem, it's the fucking venues.
Yeah, 100%.
They charge way too much. Like, my events at Dave & Buster's, Galen, are twice as good as these events in these freaking ballrooms or these hotels where they charge you for every microphone, every lapel, every wire, every speaker, every TV, every stage, everything, every chair. And then that's not even counting how much the actual venue costs, where honestly, Galen, Dave & Buster's, it's like $2,000 and I get everything. Yeah. I get the screen, I get the podium, I get the mic, I get a clicker, because they charge you for the clicker too in those places. I think that is the problem, man. Like, and it adds so much pressure on us to make sure that we bring in all the attendees. And now we have to spend twice as much in marketing, twice as much in ads, make sure we have all the people there. I think and it all starts from the price of that venue, where if the price of the venue wasn't so much, and what are they doing? Like, you're spending tens of thousands of dollars, and what is the venue actually doing? They're just a bunch of crooks, man.
Oh, it's
too
a
much.
hustle. It's a hustle. And then the food, right? They say, well, if it's a hotel, they're like, well, now you have to use us for the food and beverage. And like a cookie is like $2.50. Or the ones that don't have their own catering say, well, you have to use an approved caterer because they've set up all these deals with these caterers, right?
Right.
I'll say this to you. I've said it to a handful of people. Anyone in the industry that is trying to put on an event, if you feel like doing it in New Orleans, you can have our space. The reason we built it is so we wouldn't get completely taken advantage of year after year. So if you don't want to get taken advantage of, I'm not going to charge you. Just don't trash my building. That is all I request of you.
Nice.
But anyone that feels like doing it in New Orleans, it's there. It'll hold a couple hundred people. And it's a good venue, and you can bring in Domino's pizza for all I care. So,
nice.
Vince, it's been so good to see you again. We're pretty much out of time. Before we go though, can you tell us what it means to you to level up?
What it means to me to level up. One of my favorite books is called Mindset. Carol Dweck talks about having a growth mindset. And I think that's what leveling up is. It's just making sure you're just continuously educating yourself, you're continuously reading, and you just act like a student all the time. You're never going to know everything. And even if you think you know everything, you shouldn't think you know everything, because there's always so much more to learn. So to me, what leveling up is definitely just having a growth mindset where you're just continuously educating yourself and getting better, feeding your brain more so you could ultimately continue to level up.
I appreciate that. You look like you're doing great, and it's so good to see you, man.
Doing my best. Thank you, Galen. Nice to see you too, man.
I'd like to thank Vince Perri for joining us on the podcast. As you can see, a growth mindset is so important to Vince. Whether that's by using AI, building out his own AI bots, making sure he's got SOPs, or even going old school and building out a spreadsheet to make sure that every single person on his team can access everything they need. A growth mindset can mean a lot of things. Why don't you figure out what it means to you and try to implement 2, 3, or even 4 of those things over the next month? Follow us on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player.